Hello, everyone. Coming to you live from the command center at Isaac and the Lich. It's time for Isaac and the Lich reads Dawn of the Jedi!
All I hear is lawsuit coming.
Yeah! Only if I don't play more... if I play more than 30 seconds of that. Welcome, everyone. The Lich is here to enjoy the book with me. I hope you guys are as well. With December 20th and the god-awful Rise of Skywalker approaching us, the Lich has also sat here and heard with me listening to Lord Doomcock's various updates and the various updates from Clownfish Entertainment, a great little news site for anything entertainment industry worthy. If you guys want to check that out, do feel free to do so. Welcome, of course, to our live reading. I hope you all enjoy it. This is sort of our way of kind of saying, screw you, Disney, we're going to deal with real Star Wars. I hope you guys don't mind. Then let us begin. As I take a giant swig of water from my Viking mug. A quote for us at the very beginning of Chapter 2. In your early years, the flow of the Force might seem frightening, shocking, fine balance between its light and dark facets. And the flow will become a powerful stillness. Struggle against the Force, and your body rebels. Fight with the Force, and you have the universe on your side. Interesting quote, don't you think, Lich?
Sure.
Forgive the Lich, he's not as much of a Star Trek or Star Wars fan. Star Trek fan, there we go!
You fucked up already!
Oh no! Now I'm just seeing War for the Jedi outfit. No, Worf would be more like Sith. So now I'm just thinking leather-clad Worf with a giant fucking double-ended red lightsaber. Oh, yes, Darth Wolf. There we go. Anyway. To begin, Chapter 2, The Great Journey. 2 years, Lenore thinks. It'll be at least that long before I see Mother and Father again. But such is the training of a young journeyer. Their time at Padawan Kesh over, teenagers now, she and her brother Dal are embarking on their great journey, and they have returned home to say goodbye. Wait, what? In Chapter 1, we left off where she was going to go hunt her brother. Lich, it's doing another time skip again.
Or dream.
Close to the sea, on the southern coast of Mersara, lies Badhi Temple and its surrounding settlement. Her home since birth. Her parents are Jedi, and they teach at the temple, instructing young Force sensitives in the arts. Her mother specializes in music, prose, and poetry. Aw, that's nice. Her father is a talented sculptor and artist. Ho ho. They made their own journeys years before Dahl and Lennery were born. Indeed, they enjoyed telling the story of how they met as journeyers. And they were both drawn to Bodhi, the Force exposing and celebrating their particular talents and strengths. So this must be well before the Jedi said, "You can't marry!" and became the Catholic priests. Got it! Continuing on. It is a fine, sunny day, and the sky is clear. Oh, I skipped a paragraph, sorry. Now it's time for Dahl and Lennery to journey across Tython to the other Jedi temples, there to learn the ways of the Force, science and combat, meditation and healing. The raw talents Lennery has now will be honed and practiced throughout the coming years. She's excited and nervous, and when her mother calls her close and asks that they walk across the grassland until they are alone, she almost knows what to expect. It's a fine, sunny day, and the sky is clear. Tythos blazes above, giving them the heat and light. The Force binds her and her surroundings together, and she wears her Jedi training sword on her hip. Though nervous, she is at peace, until her mother speaks. "Look after your brother, Lennery." "I'm only 2 years older than him, Mother." "True. But this Force is strong with you. You welcome it, and it nurtures you. Your father and I both sense your strength. And we also sense Dahl's weakness. He and the Force, there's little love lost." "He'll learn, Mother. He has you and Father to look up to. You're powerful Jedi, and he'll be the same."
Foreshadowing.
True. "You are destined to follow us, I believe," her mother says. She smiles at Lennery, but there is little joy here. But my worries for Dahl are genuine and heartfelt. His interest in the distant past, our ancestors, in the history outside the system, places on Tython like the old city. I'm afraid his fate leads away from the Force, away from Tython. Her voice hitches, and Lennery is startled to see tears in her mother's eyes, glistening on her brown cheeks. "I'll make sure that doesn't happen. I'll guide and help him. I promise. That's what we're traveling for, after all." "You're traveling to learn control and expand your powers. If the Force isn't there to begin with..." "It is there," Lennery interrupting her mother. "I see it in his eyes. I think Dahl just has trouble letting go. He wants to be his own master." "And he will," Lennery said. "You know the teachings, Mother. The Force is neither light or dark, master nor slave, but a balance between extremes. Dahl will find his balance." Where is this 25,000 years later?
Oh wow, it's the beginning of what's known as the Grey Jedi.
Or rather, it seems that the Grey Jedi were the originals. You must turn to the dark side. Yoda, there is no dark side to the Force.
But the books!
I hope so, her mother says. Lennery frowns, pouting slightly. It's a little unfair, she knows, using the look on her mother can so rarely resist. But it might be the last time. She is leaving as a child, and when she returns, she will be a woman. What do you plan on doing in those temples, dear? Jedi extra activities excluded. Fine, Lennery, her mother says, smiling. I'm sure he'll find the balance he needs. Lennery smiles and nods, and a little while later, she and Doll take the first symbolic steps away from their parents. They look back along the river several times, and their mother and father remain there, watching them go and waving them on their way. Bye, kids! Hey, honey, you want to turn my son's room into a bowling alley now? Oh, come on, Liz. You know that's what most dads do. It's like, stop it. Stop it. You're doing this because you like Star Wars and you're just ruining it, damn it.
Nothing's ever gonna top a Wookiee in Oriental clothing in Zion.
Mean named Zang. Hey, at least the ruining I am doing is out of love and an actual enjoyment. Whatever Disney has done, let us not speak of the mouse. Let us never speak of the mouse. However, I think we've got a new guest. Perhaps is one of our regulars. Hi! I hope you have come to enjoy another chapter of our reading of Star Wars, Dawn of the Jedi. I'm sorry if the last chapter's reading was awful. Yeah. They're either gone or YouTube is messing up it again. Either way. Alright. Del says nothing. Neither does Lennery. Lost in their private thoughts. Hers are troubled. I'm sure he'll find the balance he needs, her mother said of Doll. Buried deep beneath her childish enthusiasm, in truth, Lennery is far from certain, and yet unsettled by whatever future her brother might face. She also leaves her parents and home behind with excitement burning in her heart. This is the real start of a venture, and one day that every Jedi on Tython has to undergo, at some point during their training. Balance in the Force is essential to become a great Jedi, and to achieve that, one must gain balance in one's abilities and talents. Being adept at the Force skills is nothing if you do not know how to use them. Having a great talent in channeling the Force through writing and art is fine, but if you cannot also protect yourself in combat, then you will never reach the heights of the Jedi Master. Ashhala, Bogan cast their light and dark shadows upon the surface of Tython, and true, balance exists within as well as without. Lennery feels the Force thrumming through her sometimes, marching the beating of her heart, perhaps vice versa. And she is looking forward to every day that follows. She and Dal often wander together, and they are very familiar with Bodhi, the nearby ocean and lands around it. But other than their time at Padawan Cache, they have never gone beyond. Oh, so is this Lord of the Rings or Star Wars? At this point, I think it's maybe a mix of both. The start of their journey will take them northwest across the large island continent of Masara to the other coast. A flight by Cloud Chaser 800 kilometers over the Thurian Ocean will follow. And after their arrival on Tyr, they will journey across rocky plains and through extensive forests until they reach Quigan Cache, the Temple of the Force Skills. It lies beyond the forests, and 3 days' walk into the silent desert. That mysterious place where sound is soaked up by some unknown quality in the constantly drifting sands. The winds are relentless there, and it's said that some of the sand sculptures that persist sometimes for mere seconds are sentient. Part of a species that has existed on Tython for millions of years. No contact has ever been made with the sculptures. Indeed, there are those who believe they are simply another unusual quality of the silent desert. But Lannery is already ready to believe. Beneath the desert, in deep caverns, they will undertake the first lessons in their journey of learning. That sounds about right for Jedi. Time to learn the Force, kids. Now you get to go out in the middle of a frickin' desert. What do you think, Lich?
We got nothing to say.
They crest a gentle hilltop around midday and turn to look back, down upon Badhi Temple in the distance. The sea shimmers beyond it, constantly moving yet at peace. The Tho Yor at the temple's center reflects the bright sunlight, and the river's snaking island is a dancing rainbow of light. When we return, we'll be real Jedi, Lornery says. Aren't you excited, Dal? Isn't it just thrilling? Yeah, he says. He grasps her hands and squeezes, but never quite meets her gaze. Mother and Father will be proud. Dal shrugs. I suppose. Lannery knows of their parents' hopes, that their journey will imbue Dal with more of the Force, that he will come to know and love it, and perhaps he is simply a late starter. It happens, they said. Sometimes it just takes time and experience. But Lannery also knows that a journeyer has to want it to happen. Come on, she says. Race you to the fallen tree. They run down the slope, and soon Badhi is out of sight behind them. Neither of them comment on the fact, and for a while, as they race each other through long flute grasses and listen to the gentle hum and hoot of the breeze around them, they are young children again. Time skip. Lannery let the Peacemaker's computer fly them out of the Tython's atmosphere, and they gave her time to look down upon the planet that had once been her home. Damn it, Lich, now you got me thinking about it. Now all I can think of is a giant flying cult just going...
Alright, locking in bullet. Click. What the fuck is it doing? Oh, shit.
And this gave her time to look down upon the planet that had once been her home. To reach escape velocity, they passed over Tython's largest continent, Talos. And even from this distance, she could see the vast wound in the land that was the rift. 600 kilometers east of the rift was Anil Kesh Temple, and it was there, here, on her great journey, that she had truly found her peace with the Force, and for the first time. It was also here that her brother's doom had been sealed. Dun dun dun!
You know, you can solve a lot of Star Wars stories by making the person who doesn't want to do the Force not,
do the Force.
Yeah. Would have solved a lot of fucking problems.
But she wished she could look down upon Masara, home to Bodhi Temple of the Arts. There her parents still lived and taught. They mourned the son they believed to be dead, but who now seemed to have become an enemy of the Jedi and a danger to everyone. Her parents knew that he had lived. Of that she was certain. Master Zhang's comments about their understanding the circumstances made that obvious. But she would have liked to speak to them and tell them to continue mourning their son. Whatever the outcome of her mission, Daly and Brock, they had known and loved, was no more. He had shunned his family and let them continue for 9 years believing he was dead. Not everyone is lucky enough to finish their great journey, her mother had said to her at Dalian's memorial. It seemed now that luck had little to do with it. Little shack, Lenery said. She laughed bitterly. She used the term before to describe Dal, but only to herself when he got his own way with their parents or infuriated her so much. The ship shuddered with its efforts to tear itself from Tython's pool, and she wondered why leaving did not trouble her equally. She spent 4 years believing it was because she was a wanderer, a seeker of knowledge and enlightenment, and the farther she went, and more she grew. A large part of that was true. Her passion in the Force made it so, but she also suspected that in ranging beyond Tython, she had left behind the lingering guilt that Dale's death had been her fault. Where could such feelings reside now? She withdrew the message pod from her pocket and slipped it into the ship's computer. The flat screen snowed, and then a picture faded from the darkness. Master Downpal's face, though this time she seemed much more tense than before. Lenery, I'll be brief. By the time you view this message, you'll have stood before me and the other Jedi Masters, and have been given a mission. What I offer you now, privately, the reason for which I'm sure you will understand, is help. Your ship's computer now contains all that we know of the errant brother and his intentions. Though, as you will see, that's precious little. A rumor, a warning, a few words of worry from other rangers and spies in the system. On Kalimar, you should proceed to the city-state of Ral Yon, where you will meet a Twi'lek called Tree Sana in Suko's Tavern. Okay, Bray, why that image? It's Suko, not Zuko. And all I can imagine is just Zuko doing, in the middle of a Star Wars heaven, just barkeeping now.
Well, he did run a tea shop with his uncle, so...
He lives close by. Just ask the tavern owner. Tree will let you know more. Tell you more. He's not a Jedi. Indeed, many of his interests are... Shikakawa? Is that right, Lich?
I don't know, I can't read it. Yes. That just reminds me of fucking Ace Ventura. Shakaka!
and on any other occasion you might seek to arrest him rather than take his advice. But he served me well several times before. Greed drives him, and I pay. Well then.
Well then, that seems about right.
She sighed and looked for a moment incredibly sad. I hate to go behind the backs of the other Jedi Masters in this, because no one on the Council wanted non-Jedi involved. But I justify doing so in the knowledge that it will help. You'll know more than most of them. Some on the worlds don't trust the Jedi. Even though, perhaps, they hold us in awe, some actively dislike us. A few harbor hate. Still nurtured and fresh following this despot war 12 years ago. I suspect is these levels of society your investigations will take you. Tree might help you past this mistrust. He knows those levels, but be wary of him. Stay alert. He has his own interests at heart, and only that. He's as dangerous as, well, Dampow smiled, almost as dangerous as you. Oh ho ho. She touched the corner of her mouth with one finger, a habit Lenery knew well. The master from Enil Kesh was thinking. I hope your studies go well, she said softly. I hope you're still learning. I have never seen such potential in anyone. Go well, Lenery Brook, and may the Force go with you. The message ended and the screen faded to black. The computer ejected the message pod, but Lenery sat for a while in the cockpit. Street turned away from the windows and amazing views beyond. Kalimar it is, then, she said. Over 4 years spent alone, the habit of talking to herself or iron hogs, which was almost the same, had grown. But I don't like the idea of a partner. She liked her own company. Sometimes she spoke to the second, empty cockpit seat beside her, though it had never been occupied. She swiveled the pilot's seat and looked to the stars. There was already much to absorb and muse upon, and she had time it would take to reach Kalimar to do so. All these secrets being entrusted to her should have made her feel honored, but instead she was unsettled. There was so much she still didn't know. After running through standard checks to ensure that her peacemaker was not being tracked or followed at a distance, being alone was more than habit. She turned to the flat screen once again. So let's see what all the masters wanted me to know. She lifted a keyboard onto her lap, tapped into commands, and started to view the information that had been loaded into the ship's computer. Advanced star-faring technology. Keyboard.
Somehow. Surely the pinnacle of future.
Future. Takes out a keyboard like a weird gamer in 2019. Very well. Another time skip. Why so many time skips? Alright, this time into the past. Lenery and Dale's parents told them that the ritual of visiting each temple would be best done under their own steam, as much as possible. Not for them the ease of a speeder or the comfort of a shire, one of the most common beasts of burden on Tython. Walking, their parents said, will bring them closer to Tython, which itself is incredibly rich in the Force, and will make them understand, experience, taste, and smell their surroundings instead of viewing them through a speeder's windshield or from the high back of a shire. Now I'm just thinking of a landmass with legs. Okay. And sometimes it means there will be dangers to confront. No, brain, no! Just, no! Why? Just, because now I just see exactly that in a little door that just opens up with a hobbit coming out of it. No! Okay. And sometimes it means there will be dangers to confront. Dreadful dangers. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Walk! You'll bond with the Force.
Oh, by the way, you might lose your arm, your leg, your life. Nothing important.
Thanks, parents. Okay. 40 days and 2,400 kilometers from home. On the strange continent of Tyr, they reach the expansive stark forests that eventually lead to the silent desert. The trees of these forests store water in pendulous leathery sacks, useful to travelers and constantly refilled as the skeletal branches suck that moisture they can from the air. It is here that their lives are threatened for the first time. Tythos shines down on them, the weather neither too hot nor too cold. The going through the forest is gentle, and they are following a shallow stream that meanders lazily toward the desert some kilometers ahead. I'll harvest ground apples for dinner, Dale says. I'll catch a rumbat to cook. A rumbat. That sounds like an interesting creature. Hey, Lich, what does your mind jump to when you hear the words rum bat?
Flying bottle of alcohol.
Don't get us wrong, we're not laughing at this because we don't like... We actually really like Star Wars. It's just... Reading some of the things in this book just makes me go... Okay, then. But this is what real Star Wars is like. Because even with all this, I mean, it does feel actually like Star Wars. Does it not, Lich?
Yes. But so far it's not helping the fact that all I'm seeing is a different image of it. A way cooler image of it.
Then a flight of hook-hawks swoops out of the trees and attempts to hypnotize Dale and Lenery with their sweet song. Carnivores, these birds hunt in packs, singing their prey to a somnolent standstill, and then tearing into their eyeballs and throats with their wickedly hooked beaks and sharp talons. They hover in a rough circle around the brother and sister, wings beating a gentle rhythm, voice glands whistling and humming in practiced harmony. Their eyes are dark and intelligent. The claw shines. Lenery has heard about these creatures, but has never seen them before. She is terrified. Never has she faced such danger. And the knowledge that their lives are at risk strikes a heavy blow. And yet, a thrill rushes through her as she thinks, "This is what the great journey is all about." "Quick," she says, "down to the stream." "What good will that do?" Dale asks. She realizes he is also afraid, and she feels a rush of protectiveness. The splashing of water can sometimes smother their songs. Really? Don't you listen to any of our lessons? She grabs Dale's hand and tugs, but already his eyes have taken a hazy sheen, the corners of his mouth lifting in a smile. Dale! I'm fine. A single hook hawk drifts down, slow and casual, still singing as its claws aim for Dale's eyes. Lennery punches wildly in her panic, and she feels the force failing within her. It is against everything she has learned, but she does not have time to berate herself. Her first fist ruffles feathers. She feels the cool kiss of the hawk's claws across her knuckles. It screeches in anger as it flaps back, and in the moment she manages to calm, focus, and flow with the force. When the bird swoops down once more and turns its beak toward her eyes, Lennery reaches out with the force and slaps it aside. So just invisible poosh! The force for slapping birds. Caw! Pat! That's a new force power for you. Force slap. Wonder why Vader never used that one. Certainly would have saved him more than just, I'm going to choke you to death now. Sir, that's one of our best guys. He failed me. But sir, if you keep choking all of our generals, eventually we will not have anybody to run the Empire. Shit, if only there was another power I can find. Finds book. Ah, force slap. You have failed me for the last time, General. Ah! Can you imagine Vader just force slapping someone? What's the matter, General? Can't see.
They didn't have to do that, really. He was intimidating as was.
Yeah, true. Vader, the great intimidator. This time, her hand hardly touches the creature. Barely a kiss of feathers across her fingertips. But the impact is much greater. Bones crackle, and with a single weak cry, its body disappears into some undergrowth, leaving only a few feathers dancing in the air. Come on, she says, dragging Dale with her. The hook hawks are still singing, and their voices silence the rest of the forest. A cool cascade, a pleasing symphony. And though Lennery tries to close herself to its influence, she can still feel a distant growing around her. She is dragging Dale along, and when he trips and falls, his hand is jerked from her. She turns back, and her brother is lying on his back, smiling at the force canopy. They will never reach the stream in time. The hook hawks are coming close. This is all on her. Lennery feels like screaming in fury and fear, but instead she finds serenity and balance. She draws her consciousness inward and crouches, deeply breathing. Perhaps the hook hawks see this as her succumbing to their charms, but they could not do me more wrong. As the first of the birds swoops, Lennery stands and sends an air-splitting force punch their way. One punch! Oh no, we're learning about all kinds of new force powers today, eh, Lich? First we're learning about force slap, now we're learning about force punch! Wow, okay. 2 creatures are knocked from the sky with broken wings and ruptured innards. Oh, damn! And a third is smashed into a tree trunk in an explosion of feathers. I can't help but quote this. If you look deep into your heart, which is currently splattered all over that tree, I'm sure you can forgive me. The surviving birds change their song to one of panic and fly up through the canopy and away. Leonard smiles at Dell, who is still shaking with fear. His eyes are distant. But they were so, he says, beautiful? A trick. They'd find beauty in your blood flowing in open flesh. Pleased that she had protected them, yet wary of pride, Leonard helps Dale stand. Your hand, he says, is bleeding. He tends his sister's wound, silently dripping in the medicines from his rucksack. They will clean the talon cuts. Then he wraps her hand in bandages. All the while, Leonard listens for return of the Hookhawks, and a small part of her wants them to come back. Her heart is beating fast, and she delights in her success. But the birds have finished their hunting for the day. I'd say so too. How about you, Lich?
Fuck! No! Get the fuck out of here! Did you just see what happened to George?
She slapped him out of the sky! And then Bob, Dale, Ernie, just fucking punched them out of the air! How could she do that? Dale leads the way through the diminishing forests. And as dusk starts to fall, they see the sparse desert landscape visible on the horizon. The edge of the forest leads down a gentle hillside. The boundary between forest and desert is a gradual listening of undergrowth, a greater spread of creeping sand. They pause for a while, filling their water canteens. And as they move out into the desert, they're cocooned within a deep, encompassing silence. Leonard speaks her own name and feels it only as a vibration in her chest and jaw. It is as if the desert does not wish her to hear. She looks at Dale, and he is wide-eyed and afraid, and Leonard thinks, I have already saved him once. Pride swells him. Once again, she tries to push it down, because pride is distracting. The first night they camp on the cooling sands. They have eaten and are seated close to the campfire. Blankets huddled around their shoulders, packs resting beside them. Sleeping rolls already laid out. Yet neither of them wishes to sleep. This place is so strange that they relish each other's company as never before. Leonard fears the dream such as utter silence might bring. Reflecting on the fight with the Hookhawks, she stares across the fires and sees movements in the shadows beyond. Tensing, nudging Dal, she realizes that he is also aware to the movement. Leonard stands, Dal crunches. Firelight flickers. From something, a nightmare slashes into their camp. Silic lizard, she thinks. Rare but deadly. These silicon-based creatures absorb energy from the sand itself, but have been known to supplement their diets with mammalian spinal fluid. Mammalian spinal fluid, the size of a human adult. They are vicious spiked beasts, 6-limbed and capable of charging one of their hind legs. Encounters with them are often fatal. For some, Silics are prized hunting trophies. Oh no! A giant fucking lizard with 6 arms, Lich! For the second time in half a day, they must face a terrible danger. Lenery is so shocked by its appearance that she freezes. Sparks scrape from its extremities as it lopes toward her. Its curved claws dig into the sand and splash out fleeting flames, and its mouth falls open to display crystalline teeth beyond counting. The complete silence of the attack is perhaps the most shocking aspect, and Lenery opens her mouth in a soundless scream. The lizard leaps through the fire, scattering burning sands around it and throwing up a confusion of sparks. Force punch. Push it back, shove it back, Lenery thinks. But her instincts are petrified by disbelief that she will die so soon after beginning her journey, victim of a beast. A flash lights up the night, and the scattered fire seems to erupt with new life. The terrifying creature twists and squirms away, slicing shadows with its limbs, and slipping through them to safety. One heartbeat it is there, the next it's gone, and Lenery turns a quick circle to see where the next attack will come from. Dale is holding his laser blaster. Its muzzle is still warm. No, she wants to say, because she is meant to protect him. Her limbs quiver in fright, and she starts to draw in her senses and balance herself within the force. The darkness beyond Dale sparkles with 100 dancing stars. Lenery opens her eyes wide as she tries to form a force punch. But her fear is still a barrier, seemingly muting the force as this desert mutes sound. Dale crutches and spins, alerted by Lenery's reactions, and the night is lit by 3 blaster shots in quick succession. The Silic lizard spines are spins a full circle as it powers from the darkness. It hits the ground close enough for Lenery to kick. Dale's gunfire and the creature's fall are silent. Her brother is still aiming the weapon at the lizard. He's shaking slightly, his eyes wide as if he can't believe what he's done. It is an old weapon, bequeathed him by his grandfather, and Lenery has always dismissed it as clumsy and unreliable, compared to the Force. Yeah, clumsy and unreliable blasters.
I still like the fact, oh god, birds, giant fucking lizard. I'ma shoot it.
Pew 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 pew! Now, though, it has saved them both. The lizard's head hangs by a thread. Its blood is dust. She embraces Dale and tries to speak into his ear, "Thank you," even though, as she does so, she is troubled and ashamed at her hesitation. Perhaps after the hook honks, she was too confident in her abilities. Misplaced pride has no place in the heart of a true Jedi. They drag the Silic lizard away from their camp and bury it to prevent interest from carrion creatures. The burial is silent, even the sush of sand between their fingers unheard. Before sand covers its face, the beast stares past them at the glorious night sky with violent eyes. 40 days out from home, not having even reached the first temple, and their lives have twice been endangered. Lenery thinks of the long journey still ahead, the perils they will face, the distances they will travel on water and air, and largely on foot. For the first time since leaving their parents, she wishes for home. That night, in her dreams, Lenore sees great shapes rising out of the desert. Sculptures in the sand that live in a manner beyond her comprehension, feeding on sound and taking sustenance from every whispered word. Each expression of love or fear. In the morning, the desert around them has changed its profile. There are 3 humped mounds of sand close by, and she wonders what watched them sleep. They march hard for the next 2 days. In the afternoon of their 3rd day in the desert, they see curved rock spires rising from the landscape far ahead, and know that they mark the location of Qui-Gon Kesh. Lannery feels a rush of excitement, but she has also seen the hollows about this place. As the desert steals sound, so its dry, scorching atmosphere also muddles distance. The temple could still be another 4 days away. They walk on, traveling by day, camping by night, watchful for danger and barely sleeping. Actually, just a little tip for everybody. If you're actually traveling in desert, I recommend that you don't travel during the day, because the heat will actually kind of drain you out, along with the amount of energy you expend traveling. If anything, I would actually recommend, if you have to travel through a desert, to try and make yourself a shelter during the day and then travel during night. You would agree with that, wouldn't you, Lich?
Yeah.
Because traveling during the heat of the day is just going to cause you more exhaustion, and you may, in fact, end up getting hurt doing that. So, just a wee bit of wisdom. I don't think anybody who's going to be watching this is going to be traveling through a desert, but, just a thought there for you. Although, hopefully, if you're going out anywhere near a desert, I would recommend wearing light colored clothes. Certainly not black like what I'm wearing. That kind of thing. When they arrive, at last they are tired, hungry, and disoriented. The silence has become a great weight, crushing them down. Even communicating by sign language is an effort. And for the last 2 days, Lenore has felt so alone, even with her brother constantly by her side. But the sight of giant rock spires and the mysterious Thoyor floating in between them brings a sense of anticipation. We're here at last, Lenore thinks. Qui-Gon Kesh. The temple is below ground in a network of natural caverns and tunnels. Beneath the desert, they will be able to speak, to hear once more. As they pass within the shadow of one of the massive rock spires, several Jedi guards emerge from the cavern in its vast base. They look Lenore and Dale up and down, smile, and hold out 2 canteens of cool, fresh water. They then take the exhausted brother and sister down beneath the desert. Here is a huge cavern, lies the majestic temple of Qui-Gon Kesh, where the arcane, mysterious, and enlightening training in the Force skills will commence. It is here that Dalen Brock's fall will begin. Dun 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 dun.
The real question here is, sure, that lizard they killed should be dead, but at the same time, if it dragged nutrients from sand, wouldn't it just regenerate?
Well, I mean, no, because it's dead.
Yeah, but this is also... No one would specifically know exactly what the fuck they would do.
But, see how many pages this is going to be. I think we can get through another chapter. What do you think, Lich? I don't have to be at work till 6:15. And then you can help me decide what game we want to play tomorrow for video this week. Our good buddy Trey has sent us a number of horror-themed Christmas games. Including a Murder Santa one.
Yes, I know.
You saw them when he popped up on our Steam account, huh? Alrighty. Chapter 3. The Good and the Great. I need more water. Would you care to take over for a time?
No.
Why not, Lich?
I do not read.
You just said to the entire internet, I do not read.
I don't read aloud.
Alright. I'm back. I have water. Let us continue. Chapter 3. The Good and the Great. Even though she had been away from home for 4 years, Lannery still kept to Tython time. She was used to it. It suited her natural sleep patterns, and she saw little point in adapting her ship to standard time. In her less guarded moments, she might also admit that it reminded her of home. Aww. The computer calculated the optimum flight path from Tython to Kalimar for the time of year and current planet alignments, and before committing to the route, Lannery also calculated it manually. The computer was never wrong in such matters. The navigational elements were programmed and designed by the Jedi, most experienced space travelers. But she was also pleased with her calculations came out the same. Rather than questioning the computer, she was testing herself. Pushing her peacemaker to its limits. It took a little over 7 days to reach Kalimar. She used this time to meditate, prepare herself for the coming mission, exercise, and review every aspect of the information downloaded to the Peacemaker's computer. There wasn't much. Whatever contact had informed the Jedi of Dale's schemes had not been very thorough. Rumors, speculations, and few hazy images. But even in those grimy images of covert meetings and mysterious exchanges, she recognized the face of her brother. He looked older, of course, but she was surprised at how much older, as if he lived 3 lifetimes since she had seen him, not 9 years. He was taller, thinner. His child's sadness translated into adult bitterness. His dusky skin had turned darker and much more rugged. There was something haunting about his blurred visage. Lannery berated herself for not letting her thoughts of his death cloud how she viewed him now. Yet the idea remained. Seeing those images of Dale felt like looking at a ghost. "We'll meet again," she said to the screen. "And I'll ask you why you let me think you were dead all these years." For the first few days of the journey, she left Dale's image on the cockpit flat screen, also feeding it through the screen in the living room quarters, directly behind the cockpit. A reminder of who she sought and who she had lost. But seeing him there only confused her more. So by day 5, she left the screen blank. For the first few days of the journey, she left Dale's image on the... already read that. Lennery had visited Calimore twice over the past 4 years. The first time was to act as a mediator in some troublesome deal between the 3 landmass developers, all of them bickering over an island called Hang Laden in the planet's vast southern ocean. Normally, a Jedi would not have been concerned with such matters, but the Jedi Council had sent Lennery because of the island's suspected archaeological importance. Though the island appeared bare, it was believed that an ancient structure, possibly of Gree origin, existed a kilometer beneath the surface. Her presence had been resented, but she had not taken an active role in the negotiations, ensuring that each of the interested parties had a portion of the land to develop. More important, she had covertly protected the cave network that might lead deep down to the ruin from an ancient history. The Force illusions she had left behind, of rock files and impossible ravines, would last for hundreds of years. Space wizards, space wizards, space wizards, na-na-na-na. It's basically what it is. Her second time on Calimar had been less peaceful. That time, her sword had been wetted with blood. Even so, she did not pretend for a moment that she knew this place. A good Jedi was always on guard and ready for surprise. Especially a Jedi on a mission as important as hers. As she entered the atmosphere and her computer contacted air traffic control, she saw 2 Calimar defense ships showing her 30 kilometers away. There would be no threat. It was more likely that the pilots were excited as spotting a peacemaker. They'd go home that night and tell their families and friends that they'd seen a Jedi arrive. They followed for the next hour, and just before peeling away, they made contact. She replied with a gentle push of grace and humor, responding to them while revealing nothing. If we meet in a tavern, we might even be friends, she thought, smiling. It was a subtle Jedi talent, but one that often served her well. They disappeared from her screen when she was more than 100 kilometers from her destination. Ah, so Master Kenobi's trolling ways of Jediism is a long ancestry indeed. Well, hello there. Wouldn't you say, Sir Lich? You know Master Kenobi was the master of trolling.
Yeah.
Well, you're a master at getting caught. I wonder if that was really why Anakin turned to the dark side. Enough dad jokes, Obi-Wan! Oh no, no! I just imagine just Obi-Wan doing nothing but dad joking Padawan Anakin as they're going through space now. Just, Master, I'm hungry. Hi, hungry, I'm Master. You know he would do it, too. Obi-Wan, master of dad jokes and snark. She approached Rolyan above a startling azure sea. The peacemaker shuddered as she passed across the waves. She was so low that the spray of the sea misted the windows, but she enjoyed flying like this. Out in space, there was no context. She could fly for days, with the starscape changing hardly at all. The depth was infinite, and distances were so vast that her mind could barely grasp them. But down here, she was close to something. Sometimes closeness mattered. Kind of when you're flying super close to the wall! She approached Rolyan above the starting azure. Rolyan had been built on the archipelago stretching out into the southern ocean. There were 5 large islands and countless smaller ones, all of them developed, and hundreds of bridges, both large and small, spanned the spaces between landmasses. Glimmering white spires reached stark fingers to the sky, and several classes of cloud chaser airships drifted in between them, like lazy birds flocking around Actrees back on Tython. The lower down buildings and streets clung to the islands and sometimes protruded out over the ocean on slender slits, and beautiful wrought bridges stood in isolation over the waterways. Ships dotted that ocean, and the inner waterways were busy with smaller watercraft. The white metal spires pulsed here and there with colored lights, illuminated even during daytime to identify an island, a building, or a street. It was an attractive city, and most of its money came from tourism. People traveled from all over Kalimar to holiday on Rolyan, and with tourists came the vultures and parasites who preyed on them. She was directed to the landing platform on a high tower on one of the outer islands. There were scores of gracefully wrought landing pads and bays around the tower, and exterior elevators whisked up and down its uneven sides. When the city's air and spaceport were beautiful, as the Peacemaker settled, Lenarine prepared herself for what was to come. Her mission started here. "Keep an eye on the ship," she said to the droid. It grumbled and clicked. "Yes, I'll have my comlink." She felt the silver tech in her label, just to make sure. In her lapel, just to make sure. Then she stood within the cabin and smoothed down her clothing, checking with her that her sword was strapped correctly to her thigh, ran fingers through her hair. She used her metal Jedi star to fix her cape around her neck. For now, there was no need to hide. She was surprised to realize that she was nervous. Somewhere at the end of this mission, her brother waited. Like any visitor who had landed on one of the spacecraft platforms, Lenarine was directed through to a large room with lines of interview pods. On one entire side was a window offering staggering views across Rolyan and the glimmering sea beyond. And the opposite wall was splayed with extravagant artwork that labeled it to the Welcome Hall. But its real purpose was obvious. Kalimar's security services were efficient and discreet, and even a Jedi was not simply waved through. She respected that, and by the time she was ushered from her interview pod, the 3 officers inside also respected her privacy. A subtle push, a gentle word, perhaps in a few days' time they might start to question their decision to let her in so lightly, although by then she would be long gone. But by the time she had traveled on 3 elevators down through the tower to ground level, Lenarine began to suspect that she was being followed. She paused in the vast lobby of the port tower, bought a drink from a vendor droid, and melted into the shadows beneath a wide, low tree. There were tables and chairs there, and a massively fat Zabrak woman was harvesting large insects from the tree's lower canopy, flash frying them and selling them to eager customers. Lannery decided she was not hungry. As she drank, she watched the bank of the elevators she had just left. Her sense of being followed was strong, but though she waited for a while, none of those exciting exiting elevators seemed to be looking for her. Strange. She was certain he was one of the customs officers. "Lady, you're a fine one," a voice said. A tall, robed figure approached, and she was annoyed with her for not noticing. "I'm drinking," she said, "so drink with me." "No thanks. Come on, Ranger. You're young. I'm almost 200 years old. Got experience. Got 3 bottles of chain wine in my room. Almost as old as me. Just waiting for a special occasion." She rested her hands on her sword's haft. The force was calm and settled, and the weapon was part of her. "Would losing your life constitute a special occasion?" He stared at her from beneath his hood, amused, uncertain, then waved a hand and turned to leave. "Ah! Jedi, so tightly wound." She finished her drink, then moved on across the lobby. There were hundreds of people there, a variety of mixed species, who had spread out from Tython to colonize system. Humans and Wookiees mingled with Twi'leks, with their prominent head tails and red-skinned. Sith, near-human Zabrak, with their vestigial horns, walked alongside Ikatochi, whose heavy horns gave them a fearsome appearance. Kalimar had been the first planet settled after Tython, and its moons, and it remained the most racially mixed and diverse. It was proud of its diversity, and was a pride well earned. Even on Tython, it was rare for so many species were seen in one place at any time. Lannery paused for a moment in the center of the lobby to feel the ebb and flow of so many people in transit. She also paused to try and spot any pursuer. Still nothing. She'd seen no one, obviously atop what she had, and although some people looked at her as they passed by, she sensed that it was not only out of interest when they recognized the Jedi star, and on occasion perhaps even distaste. She knew well enough that some Kalimar thought themselves above the Jedi. Jedi star. So wait, hold on. Are we talking about Jedi or fucking Texas Ranger? Because that sounds about what's going on here.
That was effectively what they were.
Clink. Just because this sounds less like Star Wars and almost like a spaghetti western at this point. With a sword on the hip. I'm alone too often for too long, she thought. Perhaps this subtle paranoia was a natural part of being among so many people once more. Leaving the spire's lobby, she passed a group of Daibendu monks, chanting one of their strange, haunting ululations. A small group of travelers had settled around them, and some were swaying slowly in time with the song. Just outside the main door, down a wide, long ramp that led to street level, a circle of feline Cathars were meditating upon an image of their god painted on the ground. The image was beautifully wrought, and their meditations had drawn several smoke snakes up from the ground to dance in a slow, hypnotic pattern. Lannery had heard of the Cathar's smoke snakes, but had never seen them. Such diverse beliefs being celebrated in such close proximity, her immersion in the Force meant that she believed neither, but it was still pleasing to see such inclusivity. The streets outside were bustling with people. Trade stalls, performance artists, religious groups, speakers, security officers, and children and adults alike, pointing and chattering in delight at their surroundings. She felt almost unnoticed, and she welcomed that. But she also knew there was an ideal environment in which to be followed, and that feeling persisted. Though she cast her Force sense around, there were so many people that her thoughts were confused. She would have to remain alert. Cloud chasers floated above, and occasionally dropships came down to pick up passengers. But Lannery had studied maps on her ship, and knew the tavern she sought was close by. So, she chose to walk. Bet you've never seen one like me, eh? Tree Sonic grinned at her over his glass of wine. His yellow eyes and blazing red skin gave him a fearsome appearance, but she perceived a gentle intelligence behind the startling exterior. Your coloring is quite rare, Lannery said. Rarer still for a Twi'lek, the exterior Liku. Rarer? Oh yeah, rarer indeed. He stroked the three-headed tail that grew between the usual two. The third head tail that grew between the two. Unless you use the right terminology, you wouldn't believe that some people call these things. I probably would. They call me a freak, he growled suddenly and leaned forward, baring teeth that seemed to have been filed down to points. A scary freak. You don't scare me, she said. Trees Liku. Those three long, curious tentacles growing from the back of his skull twitched a little. One tip stroking over his shoulder, the other two pointing their fingers, tapping at the air. Yeah, well, this B is a Jedi, Lannery translated. As you can guess, it's not... We do have to kind of censor ourselves a little bit here. Tree's eyes opened wide. You know, Twi'lek? Of course. That surprises you. Surprises you? Nothing about the Jedi can surprise me. Oh, don't be so sure. Lannery took a drink and looked around. Susko's Tavern. With more than 15 settled planets and moons and spread over 16 billion kilometers. There were places like this all across the Titan system. Places where people gathered to drink, eat, and talk. No matter what their color, species, creed, or breed. Where music played in the background, either a local tune or perhaps something more exotic from another continent or another world. Where travelers found common ground, and those who chose not to travel could hear outlandish tales of faraway places. And it was in these taverns that tongues could be loosened, news spread, and secrets overheard. Lannery loved places like this, because often, after a drink or two, she could have been anywhere. The drink she was sipping on now had been recommended by Tree, a local wine made from deep sea grapes and fortified with swing dust from some air of the mines of Kalimar's North Pole. It was incredibly strong, but she used a gentle force flow to make sure the potent drink did not impede her senses. She might enjoy such taverns, but She had been attacked in places like this, and she had also killed in them. Master Don Powell vouches for you, Lenery said. Trisana's eyes glimmered with humor. Oh, I doubt that. Well, she says to watch you, and that I should kill you the first moment you display any hint of a trail. Lenery looked around the tavern, but probed for Tri's reaction. Strange, she felt nothing. She turned back to him and said, But Dan Powell assures me, you don't have a traitorous bone in your body. Tree raised his brows, and his liku, resting now on his shoulders, performed a gentle, almost sensuous touch along their tips. Good, Lenery said, smiling. Then let's take a meal and, at the same time, share some information. The sea beef is good here, Tree said, and he raised a hand and caught the attention of the barman. A wave and a click of his fingers, and the barman nodded back. Lenery probed outward and touched the barman's mind. She took a startled breath. She could never really prepare for experiencing another's thoughts, as the first rush was always overwhelming, but she quickly filtered out the random, the violent, the sick, and the disgusting, and narrowed it to what she thought. Tree is so cool, so calm, so red sitting there with her, that Jedi, and he'd be lucky. She'd eat him alive. She broke away and stared at Tree until he averted his yellow eyes. But she said nothing. She knew she was attractive, and if he was thinking of her that way, there was no real harm. I'll be very open with you, Lenery said. Very honest. That's a good way to begin for both of us. There's something about you. I can't read, but I don't need the Force to understand. You're haughty and superior. Maybe that's just you, but right now, I think it's because you think you have me at a disadvantage. Perhaps because Dan Powell has told you most, if not all, of what I know and what I'm here. Tree blinked softly, his Luku touching his gentle acknowledgement. And so, you know whom I seek. You'll know that he's my brother. I have rumors and stories told in taverns, second-hand information from sources I can't verify and don't trust. And the sum of all of the information I have gives me virtually nothing to go on. I don't even know what planet he's on right now. You can't. He waved his fingers, raised his arms up and down. Forced his location? Lenery glared at Tree. His child display did not warrant a response. Master Tim Powell sent me to you, and said you might be able to help. I hope so. Because I don't know how much more of this piss I can take. Lenery emptied her glass in a swallow. Now I'll be very open with you, too, Tree said, suddenly serious. Along with talk of your brother, I hear rumors of Gree technology. Lenery inclined her head, raised an eyebrow. I don't mean the Hypergate. Anyone with half a mind knows of the theories about the old city with being of Gree origin. Tree leaned closer and glancing around. I mean what drives the Hypergate. I don't understand, she said, but already she was thinking of what the Masters had told her back on Tython. Dark matter. I mean, there are whispers of design plans, tech details. Tree shrugged. Blueprints, and all Gree. Lenery leaned back in shock. Gree? Really? So little is known about the ancient people. There were theories that the Gree had once inhabited an old city on Tython. But theorists were split together as to whether the Gree had built it themselves. Though the Gree were long gone from the galaxy, it was suggested by some of the old city was even more ancient. Lenery had met a man on Tython, not a Jedi, but someone allied to them in outlook, who had spent his life researching the Gree and their legacy. And even what he knew could be relayed in little more than an hour of talk. And now this mysterious Twi'lek, if what Dampella had told her was true, undertook criminal activities, was claiming that Dale had found something the Gree had left behind. Blueprint, she asked. Only what I've heard, more wine? Leonard bristled. He was toying with her, playing a Jedi Ranger as he would a weak-minded petty criminal looking to muscle in on some nefarious deal. She leaned back in her chair and feigned tiredness, but behind her drooping eyelids she felt the force flow, stirring her senses, boosting them, and she probed outward once again to touch Tree's mind. But he was close to her. Tree's eyes went wide for a moment, and he looked unaccountably sad. Shoulders drooped, and the Liku slumping down exhausted. He looks like a battered pet, Lenery thought. She wasn't sure where the image came from, but she had grown to trust her impressions. The Force resided in her subconsciousness, too, and sometimes it spoke. He would not meet her gaze, staring instead into his half-emptied glass. She sensed something around the fringes of his mind, but could not get in, and it was something she was not used to. Some species were very hard to read. The Cathar's minds worked in a very different way, thinking in symbols and abstracts rather than words and images. But usually, she could at least touch another's mind, whether human or alien. Tree had a wall. It seemed to encircle his consciousness, and her efforts rebounded from it, almost hinting that there was no mind at all. Yet she knew that was not the case. Tree was very much his own person, intelligent and alert, harboring desires and aims, and she could see that he knew himself very well. Tree, what's been done to you? She asked, because she sensed that he wanted to talk. The feeling was nothing to do with the Force. It was merely the empathy of one sentient being from another. Just another slave spy used by the Jedi. You're altered? She said, realizing the startling truth. Genetic? Deep and permanent. No, Jedi wouldn't do that. Ha! Tree spat. A few people nearly glanced around his outburst and stared them down, and red and furious when he wanted to be. They went back to their drinks. But it's... Lenery said, but she did not finish her sentence. Forbidden, she was going to say. But she had thought ongoing alchemy experiment on her ship, and she knew that some Jedi would frown on that. What was considered to be forbidden to some was exploration to others. Undam Pal's toy, Trisana said, quieter now. There are promises made to me. He sat up straighter and proud. They'll be kept. Money, a new identity, an estate on Skagarian city ship. He nodded firmly, but the coup arrived, displaying uncertainty and vulnerability. Lenery wasn't sure what to make of him, and the fact that he was closed to her gentle probings unsettled her. But she could also not help but admiring Dampal's work. Whatever subtle genetic adaptations he had performed, whatever strange alchemical crept Trey's mind purely his own, that made him very obviously hers, were perpetual, were perhaps immoral, yet startlingly brilliant. You'll get all that, Lannery said. And you'll get all that, Lannery said. Master Dum Pal is a Jedi of her word. Their food arrived. Tree started eating immediately, chewing and swallowing with barely a pause. He seemed ravenous. Degree, Lannery asked. The blueprints. I need to know more. And now you're here, we can know more, Tree said, spitting half chewed meat across the table. Some of it landed on Lannery's plate. When? I need to find someone, he said. Someone who's not easy to find. But on my own, a ranger will attract attention. You know the saying, when a ranger comes calling, trouble quickly follows. Well, so they hear of you. With me, they'll melt away. Maybe for a long time. So leave it to me. Meet me here at dusk. I'll know where they are by then. So who's this person? A rich Kalimar, a dealer in swing dust, and other spices, and stargazer. That word again, Lannery said. Tree wiped his mouth and took a drink. Not one of that many know. Don't use it too freely, he nodded, down at Lannery's plate. You going to eat? No, help yourself. Trey pulled her place across to him and started eating. It was as if every bite was his first. So here at dusk, Lannery said. He nodded, without looking up from his food. He excluded indifference, yet he had called himself a slave. A conflicted character, complex, troubled, exactly who she did not want guiding her during her investigation. Fine, she said, as she stood to leave. She saw faces turning away from her, and she walked to the doorway bubbling in silence broken, only by odd whispers of Ranger, Jedi, and darker mutterings of trouble. She hoped the old saying Tree had reminded her of could be put to rest on Kalimar, and hope alters nothing. And soon after leaving Susko's tavern, Lannery knew that she was being followed again. And I think that should end it for now as a good stopping point, as I must prepare for work. What say you to all of this that we have learned thus far, Lich?
Nothing much.
Oh, come on. You must have something. The Master of Wit must have something good to say.
No. It's just exactly what I always thought about it.
And that would be?
It's the same.
The same as what?
It's just the same as all of them.
Star Wars?
Yeah.
Jedi gets sent to do something. Jedi finds dark secrets.
Oh no, how could the Jedi do this? You're effectively the Catholic fucking Church.
But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream and this live reading of Dawn of the Jedi. Thank you all again, and I hope to see you next time. Stay safe out there.